Thanks, Kristen. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our council meeting for Tuesday, June the 3rd, 2025, and we're being streamed live. I'll call the meeting to order at 5:30 with the land acknowledgement. We are meeting today on the traditional territory of many nations, including the Huron-Wendat, Anishinaabe, and the Haudenosaunee peoples. We acknowledge our shared obligation to respect, honor, and sustain these lands and the natural resources contained within. We honor their cultures and celebrate their commitment to this land. We would also like to acknowledge the Mohawk and Algonquin nations, whose traditional and unceded territory we are gathered upon today. Hastings County is situated on treaty land that is steeped in rich Indigenous history and home to many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people. So next is the approval of the agenda for the regular meeting of Council of the Municipality of Marmorant Lake for Tuesday, June 3rd, 2025. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Eric and Ron, any comments or questions on the agenda? Being none, all in favor? That's carried. Is there any declaration of pecuniary interest? Being none, I'll move on to the mayor's report. May 20th, I attended Hastings County Council. At 11 o'clock that day, I participated in an interview process to acquire consulting services for leadership and team building training for the new Southeast Health Board. That evening, I chaired the regular planning meeting, followed by the regular council meeting of Marmorant Lake. May 21st, I attended the 25th anniversary of Community Care in Tweed. I admit I had no idea of the numerous programs and services they provide to Tweed, Center Hastings, Madoc Township, Marmorant, Sterling, Rawdon. Through Meals on Wheels, they provide hot meals, and residents can purchase frozen meals, all prepared in-house by 2 chefs. They provide foot care, home management, both indoors and outdoors, transportation for medical appointments, and a reassurance call program. We are so fortunate to have these community services, and thank you to the executive, the staff, and to the volunteers. May 22nd, I presented a business certificate to Peter Baker Crawford, who has established a lawn and garden care service. Congratulations to Peter, and thank you for bringing your business to Marmorant Lake. May 28th, I chaired the regular meeting of the Southeast Health Board in Belleville. At that meeting, staff provided an update on the measles cases in the area, also a verbal update on the tick infestation in Southern Ontario. May 29th, I attended the 3rd annual Mayor's Breakfast for the COPE organization, hosted by Christine Spencer at the Gateway in Tweed. 3 of her participants were present and explained their role at COPE and how the staff were able to help them achieve their goals and objectives. Justice was his name, explained how with the help of COPE, he was able to graduate from college and is currently working toward being a mechanic. Logan, a bodybuilder, and has expanded his hobby into training other COPE participants. And he's introduced a bocce ball as a special Olympic sport for the COPE. Abby, she assists her parents in their business which they operate from their home. And COPE serves approximately 80 people with varying degrees of needing assistance, and I was very impressed. Again, thank you to Christine and her team. We are very fortunate again to have these community services, which enhances the quality of the life of the participants. That day at 11:30, CAO John and I met with a resident. May 30th, I participated in a meeting with Ted Sue, MPP in Kingston, to discuss future funding for the Southeast Health Board. June the 2nd, CAO John and Councillor Derry and I met with Cynthia Reed and Merv Taylor of the Lions Club to discuss the final draft of the Lions Club agreement. And at 2 o'clock, I participated in a Zoom meeting with John Jordan, MPP, again to discuss the future funding for the Southeast Health Board. Thank you. We have next is public input. Is there anyone that wishes to speak under public input? No? Okay, thank you. Next, we need a motion to adopt the minutes of the regular meeting of the Council of the Municipality of Marmorant Lake for Tuesday, May 20th, 2025. Can I have a mover and a seconder for those minutes? Ron, second. Jane, any comments or questions on those units? All in favor? That's carried. Next, we move on to staff reports, and it's Dylan's Manager of Transportation Services traffic light update. And the recommendation is that council accept the traffic light update report dated June the 3rd, 2025. The council directs staff to continue with interim emergency repair measures for the traffic lights at the intersection of Highway 7 and Forsyth Street at a cost of $15,600 plus HST, and paid duty OPP at a cost of $3,217.74 plus HST, for a total cost of $18,817.74 plus HST, to be funded through the Transportation Services Department's Equipment Replacement Reserve. And further, that council directs staff to proceed with the purchase of a new Econolite cabinet and all associated parts, including installation, at a cost of $33,731 plus HST, plus paid duty OPP at a cost of $3,217.74 plus HST, for a total cost of $36,948.74 plus HST, to also be funded through the Transportation Services Department's Equipment Replacement Reserve. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Mike and Jane, any questions or comments? Jane?
Dylan, you and I spoke during the day of the work on the lights, and we talked about the cost of the traffic lights and why the municipality is covering it. I've had several people ask me the question. Can you perhaps explain why it is the municipality is covering this?
Yep. So the chair, the lights became the municipality's responsibility during the downloading of the Highway 14 network back in the early 2000s. I don't have the exact. I think it was 2. So, and ever since, it's been our responsibility.
So when the roads were downloaded to the municipalities, then any safety equipment or safety logistics came with the responsibility and the downloads as well?
That is correct. So those are our lights to maintain. Again, due to it being connecting link, the severity of traffic grown. There's been quite a change. I mean, from 2002 or 4 to now, it's significant difference. Again, it's one of those things, even though they're ours, we still have to go through MTO for approvals because it ultimately affects their highway network.
Okay, good. Thank you very much. It's important for people to understand that.
Yeah, and just to elaborate to that, remember, take in mind, that's a King's Highway. That is a very major Trans-Canada major network.
Thanks, Dylan. Ron?
This question's for Dylan. Dylan, did you contact MTO, and what was their response to our problem?
Yep. So once we realized it was a major issue, not a resettable, MCON, MTO, and the OPP were contacted immediately, with basically reaching out for assistance on what possible solutions we could do in the meantime, because we knew this was going to be a problem. The original timeline was up to 16 weeks, which we knew was not going to fly. So MTO sent their contact for their company, or for their contractor that looks after the majority of their lights in this area, for a second opinion, as well as alternatives of what we could do, such as turning the timing to 4-way red. If they had any cabinets in their system, basically looking for any solution we could do right away. Their recommendation was to just do what we could do, and essentially any changes would be our responsibility, such as making it a 4-way stop as the traffic volumes exceed the limits allowable for a 4-way stop.
So basically, no help. I'm just wondering, I'm just throwing it out here. I wonder if we should be sending a letter to MTO and our member with concerns, because my biggest concern of this traffic light is 80% of the traffic or more that goes through there in hours. It's all provincial traffic, and I think they're getting away good with this, and I think they should be helping us with more of the funding, the maintenance. I know they'll never take them back. But I just think it's worth a letter, and I don't know if we get John Kraft, it's something bitching to them about it, because if we don't just let it go by, they're not gonna hear us, and I think we should send something. And maybe you can add to this, John, I don't know what the wording will be, but we shouldn't miss this opportunity.
Go ahead, John.
So through you, Chair, to Councillor Derry, I think again, listening to the clerk, we should have a motion if that is what council wishes to do. I think for our perspective, a couple things. One, Dylan has done an incredible job under great pressure in terms of not only the work we do, the criticality and the pressure of doing that has been exemplary. So I think he's shown great leadership in doing that. He's also relied on the great contacts he's had within the network, within MCON, with MTO, with other municipalities, and stepped in to be able to do that. We've realized through this experience that there are limitations of what MTO can or will provide. I think yourself, Mayor, and myself have made delegations at Roma and Good Roads, as has Dylan, to sort of look at what the province can do to help us in terms of supporting what are either degrading or basically infrastructure, whether it's roads, bridges, or even the infrastructure that supports those networks, that the province do something to help us in terms of to support that. So if I can, maybe a letter that would outline what the situation, outline the timeliness, maybe perhaps elaborate on the limitations of support we got from MTO, with the idea that I can't expect we'll get a check at the end of that, but I think perhaps with the idea of reinforcing what we've done a number of times, which is asking for more support, more resources with respect to aging infrastructure that was downloaded from either the county or, in this case, the province. It's a critical piece of provincial infrastructure in terms of major corridor. We have our local aspect of it, but it is a minority compared to the rest of it. And I think, again, to elaborate and highlight the importance of this from a provincial standpoint, but also the local aspect, and even in the funding, as you see in the report, as Dylan and Nancy have put together, what the cost the local taxpayer is not really acceptable. So certainly something to summarize that. I don't expect we necessarily get a check run for us, but perhaps it would help with further information and copying the local MVP on that. I'm not sure if Dylan may have something more to add.
Go ahead, Dylan.
Yeah, I just want to further add, part of this, so the ministry does have traffic analyzing software. We had recently just done our traffic count along Highway 7. It was only within a week. So it actually will work out perfect. We just didn't have it in time for this. So they'll be able to input that traffic data into their analyzer and see exactly how these lights are even functioning, as that count is extremely outdated. So that will also feed into the potential for the connecting link funding. Say if the traffic has tripled from what their last analyzing was done, that just builds our case for an upgrade.
Thank you. Could I just make a suggestion that we deal with this recommendation? And then if Ron, you want to put forth a motion after that to send a letter to the MTO with the context of what we've just talked about, can we do it in two separate, because this was really operational here. So any further, Eric, you had your hand up?
Yeah, I'd like to thank staff for putting this report together, first of all, so that the public can be more aware about the situation. I'm sure as fellow councillors, we were all hearing it from the public and getting questions, as well as municipal staff and all departments getting questions as to what's going on. So through the chair, I do have a few questions for Dylan. Some of this is indicated in the report, so asking for the purpose of information. Dylan, so the default to the yellows and the reds, that sequence that the light defaulted to, who sets that, the municipality or the province?
That is mandated through the light, so through the province.
Okay, and you asked them about going to a four-way red, correct?
That is correct. So first off, the cabinet was unresponsive to any changes as it was anyways. However, it was looked at even if we were to have temporary traffic lights set in place. The response back was ultimately, if we really wanted to do it, it would be our responsibility, taking all ownership and liability. So if there was, say, in case of an accident, the municipality would be at fault.
Okay, thank you. And what were the barriers to looking at options like temporary traffic lights or stop signs on the road or hanging something from the existing fixtures.
Yep, so as soon as the weekend was over, we realized the timing wasn't changing, so we made calls for temporary traffic lights mobile. We measured it. They would not fit due to spacing. They can't sit on the highway doing that major arterial highway. We couldn't block the sidewalks, as well as just there was the spacing in general. As well as another added cost. You're looking at approximately almost $10,000 for 4 sets of lights at a 1 month charge. Permanent temporaries were totally out of the equation, as that would require new poles in the meantime, covering the existing lights. So that wasn't even a thought, was along with all the permitting.
And if we had no solution for that, what would the solution have been? We would have had to have OPP on site if they were totally out of operation?
That is correct. If lights go out at a four-way lighted intersection, the OPP do need to direct traffic.
And whose cost would that have ended up being?
That would have been the municipalities, and at that point, we would have been making a major decision.
So in this report, you allude to a 2 to 4 week window on the new box. Is there any update to that estimated time?
It's currently still at that. We're hoping it comes in sooner.
Okay. Does the new cabinet have any kind of surge protection built into it?
That is correct.
Okay. And can you explain the reason why we can't keep the old cabinet and the temporary cabinet that we have now? Why does that have to be replaced by the new cabinet?
So the temporary interim cabinet has been retrofitted with all the proper functioning timing blocks inside. However, it does not have a backup power source. So the previous cabinet, if anyone in the field would notice it had double doors front and back, and it was quite large. This one's half the size with only one side opening. The back side is full of battery. So as soon as in an event of a power surge or power failure, it reverts to the backup power supply.
Okay. My last question here. So the off-duty OPP cost $32.17. I did notice that they weren't there all day. The replacement box got put in pretty quickly and they left at about 11:30. Will that cost number change because it wasn't an all-day affair as originally estimated?
Correct. That is potential to change, as well as the projected 32.17.74 for the permanent solution. That's based on 4 officers on standby during the day with 2 vehicles. So that is just on the high end.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
Thank you. I just wanted to reiterate what John said. Dylan, you did a great job getting that repaired. And I know a lot of people were very critical, and I don't think the ones that are being critical understood the hoops that you were jumping through to try to get this fixed as quickly as possible. And I just would like the public to know that you did a very good job, and thank you and your staff, and even the staff here in the office took a fair amount of grief over that. So I think you all need to be commended for the way you handled it. And so thank you very much. Any other comments? So to the first recommendation, we've got a mover and a seconder. Are there any further questions or comments? Being none, all in favor? That's carried. Ron, did you want to make a motion?
Yeah, I would. I'd like to make a motion to direct our CEO to send a letter to MTO as well as Rick Buzet's office in regards to funding, no, not necessarily funding, but assistance in maintaining the traffic lights. Something like that.
So through you, Chair, to Councilor Derry, I'll elaborate on that, also pick up some of the elements of what we were talking about before. And perhaps the punchline, if there is one, is the idea that if we're looking for support, we would be looking for the recognition of this situation in future requests for funding. And perhaps that could reflect kindly in terms of understanding our situation and how we went above and beyond it. If you're comfortable with that approach, we'll do that, and then copy, of course, the local MPP representing.
Thank you.
Eric,
Second that. Okay.
okay. Any further comments or questions? Mike?
I think it's a great idea. I just can't believe that MTO, with all the stoplights that they own in Ontario, does not have a pile of backup lights somewhere that they could have given us. It just doesn't make sense. You know, in their budget, $60,000 for a stoplight is just a blink. So I, it just boggles me. It also, and I know this is not right, but I gotta say something. Why do people have to give everybody grief when something goes wrong and they have no solution, but they just want to yell at somebody? I just don't understand that. That's not in my nature. I just think that's totally wrong. And I just think Dylan and the staff have got a lot more patience than I would ever have. Thank you.
Go ahead, Dylan.
I just wanted to add, just with reference to that, so the interim cabinet did not come, it came from another municipality within a fairly close driving range.
And I would
I-
just like.
Another municipality, but not MTO. yeah.
I would just like to expand on some of these thoughts in terms of your motion, Ron. I think since I've been mayor, we have made 3 delegations at different conferences to do with the connecting link here in town, and never received any positive response. I'd be willing to do that again at AMO. I don't know. It seems like we do a lot of work preparing for these delegations. Staff, have a lot of preparation to do. And I'm willing to do it if you think it's valuable, or could be, maybe now that we have some changing circumstances with traffic counts and so forth. But we can start with the letter anyway. Ron?
Yeah, I think you're right, Mayor. I think our connecting link agreement, the traffic count has outgrown the agreement. And it has, it's,
Mhm.
the amount we are now back to then. It's more than tripled in the agreement. Needs to be looked at again, so.
Okay. So Jane?
So just a question. So does the traffic count, does it differentiate between vehicles and transports? We've got a heck of a lot of transports that go through Highway 7.
It can, yes. So currently all we do is just traffic data, just the counts alone. It will do classes as well. If that's a request in the future for certain things, yes, it will differentiate.
Awesome. Yeah. So on the motion to send a letter, with the particulars like, we've mentioned and that John can draft, including those, issues. So Eric, you seconded that motion. So any other comments? All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Next is the Dylan's report for the supply of surface treatment. The recommendation is that council accept the supply of surface treatment for 2025 capital projects for Centerline Road and Jennison Road report dated June 3rd, 2025. And further that council award the contract to Greenwood Paving Limited to for final grade compact water supply and apply double surface treatment to approximately 41,300 square meters of road for $398,873 plus HST. Can I get a mover and a seconder, please? Ron, and second. Eric? Any questions or comments? Ron?
Yeah, just a question for Dylan. Dylan, has the cost of surface treatment or emulsion, has it gone up much since last year?
Through the chair, Councillor Derry, actually not too much this year, surprisingly. That's Miller, for example, and Dufferin were on par of what I was actually kind of preparing for, and Greenwood snuck in there, so we got kind of lucky there.
Any other comments or questions? Being none, all in favor? That's carried. Next, Dylan's report for supply of crushed stone. Recommendation is that council accept the supply of crushed stone granular M for 2025 capital projects report dated June 3rd, 2025. And further, the council award the contract to Danford Construction Limited to supply haul and spread 5/8 inch crushed trap rock from Queensboro Quarry onto specified roads within Marmor and Lake for $351,975 plus HST. Can I get a mover and a seconder, please? Mike and Jane, any questions on that report? Ron?
Yeah, it's for Dylan again. Dylan, I wonder if we could get a list of the roads you plan on resurfacing. Only question for that is if we're asked what roads are being done, we could have an answer, that's all.
Yep, through the chair, so Jerry, that's not a problem. There'll be a Facebook announcement, a social media post as well as once we proceed, what roads will be done, kind of a timeline.
Okay.
Yep, everything will be issued.
Thank you.
Actually, and if I remember, I could be wrong. I think it was in our 2025 budget as well.
Anybody else have any questions? Being none, all in favor? That's carried. Thank you, Dylan. Next is Jeff, Manager of Parks and Recreation and Facilities regarding the Parks and Recreation Garage update. The recommendation is that council receive this Parks and Recreation Garage update report dated June 3rd, 2025. That council directs staff to replace the existing flat roof on the Parks and Recreation Garage located at 14 Burstall Street with a similarly designed flat roof, specifically a 60 mil fully adhered TPO membrane system through an RFP process as recommended by Quinty Structural and Site Solutions. And further, that council directs staff to use the WSIB rebate of $43,714.04 to complete the other repairs needed to meet health and safety standards within the Parks and Recreation Garage in conjunction with the roof replacement. And I have a mover and a seconder. Mike and Jane, any questions or comments on that report? Jane?
I would just like people to understand that the funding coming from the WSIB, the rebate, it's something that we can't count on annually. It was the 2023 surplus rebate, and it's because WSIB has a new calculation for giving people who don't have any accidents some of the money back. So I think it's a wonderful idea that we're using it for that, and it's money that basically falls out of the sky.
Thanks. Anyone else? Mike?
That on? Gone. Okay. I'd just like to thank Jeff. This thing has come to council for so many years and so many costs and so many guesses. It's finally nice to see that we finally got an engineer in there, gave you recommendations, good recommendations, I hope, and that we're going ahead. This cost is about 1/3 of what we projected that this was going to cost us. And I'm really happy to see that the building sounds like it's in reasonable shape, is going to be used again. And it'll be a great addition to the Parks and Rec. So thank you for all the work you did in the background work on all this stuff. And I'm really happy that we're going to get the whole thing done, because to do it piecemeal, like do the roof and put the rest of it off and hope to get money for next year, that's nuts. There's no point putting the roof on if you're not going to fix the inside and use the building. So this is great. Thank you.
Ron?
Yeah, I just want to echo what Mike said exactly. Thanks, Jeff. It's a great report, and I'm really pleased to see us keeping the building we have and keeping the infrastructure we have and bring it up to date. And but as Mike said, it's way cheaper than what we initially were going to spend a couple of years ago. So good work, Jeff.
Eric?
Through the chair to Jeff, do we know what the estimated life of the TPO roof is going to be and what maintenance will be required?
Through the chair to Councillor Dale, I believe that it is around a 20 to 25 year life expectancy with a 2-ply TPO membrane system. And as far as maintenance goes, the increased, the new tapered insulation to promote better drainage to our existing drainage spout will help extenuate the life cycle of this roof, and continued maintenance, whether it be remedial measures to safeguard the roof, fencing along the sides, whatever we would need to do to ensure that, because of slope and where we are at the back of the garage, to ensure that restrict access to that area.
Okay, the washrooms in there, I don't see those identified in those on this report. Is that gonna be addressed at all, or that will be a future matter?
Through the chair, that would be a future matter that we can create a plan of sustainability for that garage, like any of the other facilities that we operate out of.
Okay, and based on kind of the timelines and all the things your department has going on in the summertime, if this project can't start till later in the summer, like, do you think the roof and all the interior work is going to be able to be done in 2025, or might there be some that is going to need to carry over just because of the size of the project?
I believe we can attack the roof, and then once we have sealed up what we need to do, we've restricted or prevented the continued leaks, then we have as it gets colder, contractors can continue to work on the conditions within the building.
Excellent. And are you going to need any temporary solution while this work is done for equipment? Do you have a plan there?
I have not, at this time, I have not looked into those measures, but I would be happy to price out sea containers and whatever we would need to address that.
Okay, excellent. Thanks for all your work on this. It's great that it's moving ahead.
Thank you.
Yes, I just wanted to say that, prior to this, we were contemplating, tearing down and removing the building. This way we're spending money, but we've still got our capital asset, and I think that's important. And I think we need to, in future, do a better job in maintaining our assets as we go forward, and then we won't be hit with these big expenses, which really are a lack of maintenance over the years. So thank you, Jeff. Any further comments or questions? All in favor? That's carried. Thanks again. Next is Jeff's report on Quinte Conservation 2025 Invasive Species Management Project. And the recommendation is that council receive this Quinte Conservation 2025 Invasive Species Management Project Proposal Report dated June the 3rd, 2025. And further, that council directs staff to include $2,400 in the 2026 Parks and Recreation operational budget to cover the costs of this program for the duration of 8 weeks if the service is offered again in 2026. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Jane, and second, Mike. Any comments or questions on that project? Go ahead, Eric.
I guess through the chair to Jeff. While I understand this is a great project and addresses a problem, the parking lot there is extremely tight on the best of days for boats getting in and out of there. Can you see any place this could be parked that wouldn't totally impede and disturb that parking lot that's already tight?
Through the chair to Councillor Deos. In particular, which are we speaking of, Mag's Landing, or?
Yeah.
There are options for Booster Park. Dickey Lake is of course a further on and worth preserving and trying to safeguard two invasive species. I believe there are multiple locations for this service. I think the biggest thing we can do is be preemptive and have those funds readily available so that we can address the busiest time of year with cottage traffic and boats coming from here, there and everywhere.
Yeah, I appreciate the program. I personally think maybe this should just make its way as a consideration for 2026 budget. The boat launch I know we don't have data or stats on who the usage is, but a lot of the use of that space that I see at least is residents that live here where their boat is going in and coming out, not going in and out or traveling because we don't really have connected lakes here. So.
Thanks, Eric. Can you go ahead, Mike?
The only problem I see is I sit on Quinny Conservation Authority, and all you got to do is get water soldier or milfoil or anything in our lakes. And we've had it because there's absolutely nothing that you can do to get rid of them. So I would pay $2,600 to try to stop it. And they do have bass tournaments and things like that on Crow Lake where boats are coming in from other places. And Dickey Lake has a lot of people that travel between all the lakes up through that area. A lot of people use Steenberg Lake and over Wilson Lake. And, all you got to do is get 1 or 2 pieces of that weed into your lake and it just grows like crazy.
Thanks, Mike. Go ahead, Eric.
The concern I see is just that without it being mandatory, if you live on the lake, you care and you want to solve and stop this problem. But how do we get people to actually use it? When you have a bass tournament that's here and starting at 6:30 in the morning and then coming out at 5 o'clock and they just want to go for a burger and get a beer, we're going to have to recognize, are there steps that we can take to get users that aren't from here specifically to take advantage and use this, or look at potentially, I know that fees for out of town users at the boat launch, just to have a cost recovery aspect to this potentially in the future.
Okay, but
Go ahead, Mike.
I don't agree with you because these people on these lakes that we have up here, we get the same thing up our way, like who are those people throwing the garbage in the ditch? Can't be our people. Well, I'll guarantee it's our people up there because ours are dead end roads. People are not traveling through throwing stuff out. And the people that you've got on Crow Lake, I'll guarantee if they're avid fishermen, they're not just fishing Crow. They're fishing all kinds of other lakes. So unless you got your boat back and it's sitting out of the water for, I think it's supposed to be out of the water for 24, 36 hours minimum. If they're putting it back in and taking it over to their dock, it's coming with it. I've seen boats come out through Belleville with weeds just hanging off the trailer because as they pulled out of the lake, they pulled like about 15 plants with them. So where's he going? I have no idea, but he's heading north. For $2,600, I think it's well worth trying.
Ron?
This question's for Jeff. How big of an area, Jeff, do you need? I'm not familiar with this process, but how big of an area do you need for this system?
Through the chair to Councillor Derry, from what I have seen of pictures, it would be similar to the size of a small boat trailer alongside where the launch would be. And maybe if we positioned it adjacent, somewhere toward where the parking lot is so that, someone could pull out and still the next person could be loading, and yet we could still, at least if we are offering the service, we are trying to safeguard our waterways.
Yeah, I was just sitting here wondering, Eric's right, it's a small area, but if we located this device on the other side of the rock barriers, they could pull alongside and it wouldn't impede in the parking and the flow of traffic. It could be on the other side of the barrier and they could just, I don't know, just thinking that might work. Mike is right. We want to do everything we can do, but it is a tight area.
Go ahead.
Yeah, my concern is just getting people to use it. If it's great if it's there, but what steps do we have to take to get people to actually use it, right? It has to be easy to access and we have to. Are people, you believe people will naturally use it? When a bass tournament comes out, they're gonna get in line and.
No, I don't. But we got to try. The problem is no, most people won't use it. Most people will say, oh, Jeff's there already. I'm not waiting 15 minutes for him to clear out of there. But if we don't try, it's like everything else. You don't have to stop for a red light. Don't have to stop, but you do. So the guys who are really committed to fishing and all that, they'll clean their boats. The other people, no, I agree with you. They won't. They'll just go. But if we don't have it there, nobody will do it.
As long, it's just back to the signage thing or letting the Crow Lake Waterway Association or the cottage associations know so that people know what this new thing in the parking lot is, when it's gonna be there, why it's there, and try and encourage usage if we're gonna pay this to the taxpayer.
John?
Through your chair to the balance of council, I think, really good discussion. I think what this will need is also be enhanced with working with Quinte Conservation and those lake associations with the idea of promoting it. So through better communication, through a campaign, which between now and when the budget comes forward, that when this is considered by council in the budget in the new year, it'll be more than just a line item. It'll be animated with the idea of this is what we're working and these are the partners. And again, it sort of informs people. We can't make it mandatory, but at the same time, we can use those groups and the leverage of those groups, their influence, to make sure that it's, you're doing something by modeling the best behavior. Anything we can do is a good contribution. We can certainly work with those groups and sort of gather the good conversation between the deputy and the councillor in terms of on its own, it's not going to work. But with a campaign, with communication, with engagement, with all those groups, those partners, we'll make sure that that comes forward. And that will be what will be presented in the 2026 budget, is more of a complete program as opposed to just a line item.
And if I can just add to this, if we do it for 1 year and we collect the data and we see the uptake, if we're not getting the uptake, then we know in 2027, we don't budget for it. It's not worth it. But I don't think, to Mike's point, if we don't try and, collect the data, how many people are using it or how many aren't, and to see if it is a successful program, I think that it's worth trying. So any further comments, Eric?
Yeah, I would just suggest we need to pay attention for 2025. It's too late for us now, but let's look at best practices, what they're doing in our neighboring municipalities that are using this and have this on site, to watch how they're promoting it or trying to encourage use of the equipment.
Okay, any further comments, questions? Being none, did you want to say something further, Mike?
I just have one more comment. I think Jeff's point to this whole thing about doing it now is that there is no spaces left. So everybody's using it already. So if we don't book it soon, we're not going to have spaces yet. So this whole conversation will be moot, or whatever that word is. I think it's moot. And then we can just all go home.
Thanks, Mike. So, all in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Thanks, Jeff. Next is Jeff's report regarding the Pierce Mill structure. And the recommendation is that council receive the Pierce Mill structure report dated June 3rd, 2025, and further that council defer a decision about the roof of the structure to provide time for a proper assessment of the larger issue at hand. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Ron and Mike, and any comments or questions on that report? Ron?
Yeah, I agree with Jeff's comment. I think we need to, over the year, take a look at what we want to do down there. Whether we even want the structure or what we want to do with the structure. So painting it is kind of getting ahead of ourselves, I think.
Thanks, Ron. Jeff, what are there structural problems with that building?
Through the chair to you, Mayor. There's not overly structural issues, as far as it is not just the roof that is looking a little bit rusted. Frame could be painted, and the historical equipment within it is kept within a chain link fence. So it's really a deliberation of whether or not that structure is doing its purpose by really showcasing our history. Is there other options for us to tackle, whether that is the suitable location for that display? Would we be choosing to paint the roof without painting the frame? Is it best to keep it within a chain linked off-access area. The structure contains parts of a sawmill, therefore it is a danger and a liability to be open to the public. So, but it is uncertain whether the current structure housing the equipment is the best way to display the municipality's history. The display is also scribed with the Crow Valley Lions Club, 1981. Therefore, any decision made regarding this structure should be in coordination with the Lions Club.
Okay, thank you. So go ahead, Mike.
I agree with Jeff. I drove by that many times, never even realized it was there. And the other thing is, to me, it's a building with a chain link fence. You can't even get up close to see a piece of equipment. And the other thing I never saw is I never saw any plaques or anything there describing what it is, where it was, who it came from. So what's to draw people over to look at it and then get over there and then wonder what the heck it is? So if we're going to do it, I think, as Jeff said, is this the right way to do it? And at least if we had some plaques or something, that would help showcase it so that people would understand it. But it's got to have a sign up the road or something before we put a whole bunch of money into paint and work to get it fixed up. And I agree with Jeff. I'm not sure it's the right place. A building with a chain link fence all the way around that you can't get at the piece of equipment is not a way to showcase a piece of that equipment.
So I think what I'm hearing is that we are in favor of Jeff's recommendation. So, is there any other questions, Ron?
Yeah, I agree with Jeff on the aspect of the Lions. I think we could somehow coordinate another meeting or whatever to see what their future plans are for. They put it there. I know they did, and maybe they have ideas as well that we don't know.
Yeah.
So maybe that's something we can work on with them.
This gives us some time to consider that
Right.
by deferring. So all in favor? That's carried. Thank you, Jeff. Next report from the treasurer, Nancy, regarding the Canada Community Building Fund audit report. And the recommendation is the council accept the 2023 Canada Community Building Fund audit report dated June 3rd, 2025 for information. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Jane and Mike, any comments or questions on that report? Jane?
Good job, Nancy.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Yes, good job, Nancy. All in favor? That's carried. Committee and board reports, Quinte Waste Solutions, minutes of April the 14th, 2025. Marmarin Lake Public Library Board, minutes of April the 17th, 2025. And the recommendation is that the foregoing minutes and reports of the committees and boards listed are hereby received for information. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Jane, second Mike. Any comments or questions on those two reports? Mike?
Quinte Waste Solutions, just update everybody. I think I've updated everybody in the government here, I guess is the word, what I'm trying to say. Anyways, Quinte Waste Solutions has sold a piece of property in Trenton. As of July, we will no longer be collecting blue box material. The hazardous waste that is been ongoing in conjunction with Quinte Waste will still operate out of the Belleville Depot. Plus, there's going to be remote locations set up as we've had in the past, where there'll be a day or two each summer where you can bring all your hazardous waste to a location in this area. That's being negotiated right now. The funds, there's going to be a surplus coming through from Quinte Waste. Most of it's due to the sale of the building. Those funds will be dispersed. We are one of the minor players in the whole thing. Our portion is 3.81% of the value of the asset. So those funds will be dispersed by the lawyer once that sale is complete. There'll be sufficient funds left over from the operating of Quinny Waste Solutions to carry the hazardous waste through till the end of the year because Blue Box changes, I do believe it's July 17th. And there was a notice in the newspaper too of the date changes of collection in our area. So, and they will be forthcoming also as we get closer to the date. But as of this summer, Quinny Waste Solutions will no longer exist and they will be totally wrapped up as of December 31st of 2025. So that'll be a day a month I have off. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Thanks for that update. Any further questions on those two reports? All in favor? That's carried. Next, correspondence for direction. John Mahu, Association of Ontario Road Supervisors regarding Eric Armstrong's Associate Road Supervisor certification. And the recommendation is that council receive the letter for information. And I would like to add to that, that we send Eric a letter of congratulations in response to him receiving this accreditation. Can I have a mover and a seconder for that? Ron, second Eric? Any comments or questions? I'd just like to say congratulations to Eric. Please pass that on to him, Dylan. Any other comments or questions? All in favor? That's carried. Next, Center and South Hastings Waste Services Board. The 2024 financial statements. And the recommendation is that council accept the statements for information. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Mike? And second? Ron? Any comments or questions?
I know Nancy will appreciate this. It came through as a very clean audit this year, which is really good. So Nancy knows what those mean.
Mhm.
Yeah, so it was good. We had a surplus this year due to the price of commodities going up. So we have, when I said that we would have sufficient operating funds to run right through to the end of the year, I do believe the last payments that we made in January of this year will be the last payments that we have to make to Quinny Waste Solutions going forward, because there is sufficient funds. And any surplus at the end of the year, at the end of December, will be dispersed again by the lawyer. We thought it was more prudent to have a lawyer do all dispersal of funds. It takes away from a committee of vested interest people trying to hammer it out, have one person who's a lawyer and has been a lawyer for Quinny Waste for, I think, 20 years, handle everything. So that would be, like I said, that's one less meeting a month I have, plus all the other junk in between. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Mike, and thank you for your service on that board. Okay. Okay, all in favor? That's carried. Next, bylaw number 2025-38, the Integrity Commissioner Appointment Bylaw, being a bylaw to appoint ADR Chambers, Inc. as Integrity Commissioner for the Corporation of the Municipality of Marmon Lake. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Eric, second Jane. Any comments or questions on that bylaw? Being none, all in favor? That's carried. Any notice of motions or announcements? I have a couple. I think I'd like the public to be aware that the Board of Health, Public Health Board has got a mobile dental unit, which is located in Marmor, I believe, twice a month. And it's on the website, so please take advantage of that service. It's parked at the arena when it's in town. And on Thursday, I will be joining the doctor recruitment committee. We are going to be having lunch with some medical students that we're trying to encourage to consider this area when they are ready to practice. So that's my two announcements. Jane?
I attended I was at kayak, canoes and cones and kayaks on their grand opening, speaking with the owner and learning about how he sees the plans for the summer. The ice cream was very good. Lot. And I also attended on Saturday, we had the food trucks at the fairgrounds. I attended that and it was nice to see that turnout. And when I spoke to the organizer, she is looking at doing it again next year.
Good, thank you. Anything else? Okay, being none, we'll move on to the closed session. Need a motion that the council will proceed into a closed meeting session under the Municipal Act, section 239(2). B, personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees regarding the staff update. E, litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board, and it's regarding a litigation update. D, labor relations or employee negotiations regarding our union negotiations. And F, advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose, and it's regarding the Lions Club agreement. Can I get a mover and a seconder to go into closed? Ron and Jane? All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. So we'll give Kristen a few minutes to get, and I'll have to ask everybody else